As publishers and editors, reporters, and elected officials, we all have different roles in the process. I'm very aware of that. And I think the success of the process falls on us playing those roles professionally and to the best of our abilities, even if sometimes it may seem adversarial. What I'd like to do today is just give you a quick update on some of the priority issues I see this legislative session and have a chance to probably take your questions and your comments. I don't think anything is simple, by the way. I used to think things were simple. The first time I said to my boss, Chris Kehoe, when she was a city council member, that's a no-brainer. She said, "Oh, Tone, there is no such thing as a no-brainer," and I've learned that she was exactly correct. You know, the first issue I wanted to talk about is transportation and the funding proposal that I announced last week. That proposal is a $10 billion for transportation infrastructure, $2 billion a year over the next 5 years starting in July. Some of the money includes accelerating loan repayments from the state's general fund that were owed to transportation accounts that we had to make things balance over the years when we were in the Great Recession. It includes new funding for transportation by establishing a road user charge. And we anticipate that charge would amount to about $1 a week for most drivers. And as I said when I announced the plan, California really can't have a strong middle class or a thriving economy if our roadways are congested and people and goods cannot move efficiently throughout our state. Every organization out there, from the California Transportation Commission to the Alliance for Jobs, have studies showing how badly we need to improve our infrastructure and how much our current system costs drivers in terms of increased maintenance, wear and tear on the vehicles, and from lost gas mileage and time. Even the level of current transportation funding that we do have is declining. Cars have become more fuel efficient, and more vehicles are using no gasoline at all. That is good. That is a good thing. But it means that revenues collected at the pump to pay for roads and bridges are down and will continue to trend down as fuel efficiency increases and driving behaviors change. From the last budget year to this one, the gasoline excise tax that's supposed to go towards transportation infrastructure dropped 3.5 cents. And the expectation is a further drop when the Board of Equalization releases their new numbers in March. Now, that also is good news for consumers, but it's also why we need to move into the next generation of funding for transportation. The legislature and the governor did create a program to study potential mileage-based collection systems. That study is expected to be released by June 30th, 2018. Well, frankly, that's too long. We can't wait that long to start to try to reinvest in infrastructure, particularly when it has been so long since we have invested. Our proposal can be altered down the line if the results of that study warrant it. I might add, Oregon has been part of a study for 13 years, and they just implemented a pilot program limited to about 5,000 vehicles. So, you know, we are not the first in line to look at this issue, but if it takes 13 years, that's just too long. So it makes sense to try and tackle this as soon as we can, given the fact that things have changed in our state. The Federal Highway Administration calculates that every dollar invested in transportation infrastructure produces $5.20 in economic benefits. And studies have shown that every $1 billion spent on transportation infrastructure leads to as many as 18,000 jobs. I've seen studies that show 15,000 all the way up to 25, but we've looked at one that says 18,000 jobs can be created. So I'm hopeful because transportation has traditionally been a bipartisan issue, and we've taken on tough issues in the recent past in a strong bipartisan way, like the Rainy Day Fund. And trust me, the water bond was harder to do than the budget. But we did it, and we had near unanimous support. We only lacked 2 votes out of 120 legislators. One area where I'm confident that we're going to have cooperation across the aisle is college affordability. And as Speaker, I have the honor to serve on the UC Board of Regents and the CSU Board of Trustees. And I voted to oppose a fee increase imposed by the regents in November. But I also proposed an alternative. Under my plan, we would reject the proposed fee increase for in-state students and provide UC with additional state funding, which I proposed last year too. And unfortunately, that was vetoed, so we need to take that up again this year. But the funding would have to be coupled with a few things. greater UC efficiencies, higher enrollment of California students, a cap on out-of-state students. And let me just say here, last year we had the highest number of out-of-state and out-of-country students than we've had in the history of California. So I'm not suggesting that we don't let people come to California, because they are, and that's important in terms of the diversity, cross-cultural pollination, all of those things are important. So I just wanted to put that in perspective so you know that last year was an all-time high, and we're not talking about taking it down. An accelerated reasonable fee increase on out-of-state students in line with what other universities charge. And between 2008 and 2012, tuition and fees at UC and CSU almost doubled. That's going in the wrong direction. UC tuition went from $6,636 to $12,192 per year. CSU tuition went from $2,772 to $5,472 a year. And that's just tuition. That's not room and board and books and all of those things. During the same years, the state cut funding for universities in response to our recession and an overextended state budget. And while college should be more affordable for every California family, it was really middle-class families that have suffered the brunt of tuition increases and are increasingly being priced out of an education. And that's why we led an effort in the Assembly to create the middle-class scholarship. Now, in the first year and fully operational in 2017-18, the scholarship program has already helped more than 77,000 California students at both UC and CSU. Thousands more students are eligible in the current application process. Once fully implemented, the middle-class scholarship could reduce a recipient's annual out-of-pocket tuition cost by as much as 40%. That's $4,900 at UC and $2,200 at CSU. And in light of UC's proposed tuition increases, the Assembly is also going to take a look at making sure that the system is held accountable for how its leaders spend money that students and taxpayers already provide to them. So in hearings beginning this month, the Assembly will apply the principle of zero-based budgeting to UC. The budget hearings will give UC the opportunity to show the efficiencies it has made, and they have made efficiencies, and to identify further efficiencies. The hearings will also give our legislature an opportunity to scrutinize whether each dollar that could be spent holding tuition at its current level would be better spent on a different UC priority, as President Napolitano has suggested. Governor Brown and President Napolitano have agreed to work as a committee of two to examine UC's finances and funding. I think that can complement the Assembly's zero-based budgeting process, which will be conducted in open public hearings and be student-focused. How much does it really cost to educate students at UC, and how do we maximize UC's acceptance of California students? And finally, this session, I will continue to focus on increasing the amount of affordable housing available in the state. The issue of housing instability is touching more people than ever before, and we are now seeing much more higher income levels families in crisis. We were able to put into this year's budget $100 million in general fund dollars for affordable housing, which includes $50 million for multifamily rental housing and $50 million for permanent supportive housing. We allocated $65 million from greenhouse gas cap and trade revenue for housing-related transit-oriented development. And we also guaranteed at least 10% of future cap and trade auction revenues are to be spent on affordable housing developments that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So that includes transit-oriented development, housing in walkable communities, affordable developments with zero net energy use. And according to the LAO, that funding is expected to increase even above what we predicted. But there's a lot more to do. And also, we are putting out the first amount of money this year from Proposition 41, the veterans housing money that California voters voted last June to support, putting that money into rental housing for veterans in addition to home ownership. So if you think about that, and I heard one of the last questions on affordable housing, if you think about that, we basically have about $340 million between last year and this year and money that can go out for affordable housing in the state. That is significantly lower than the $1 billion we had in redevelopment dollars as part of the 20% set aside. So we have a long way to go, and we have to work to figure out how we're going to be able to do more on affordable housing. What we truly need, and what I'm committed to achieving, is a permanent and sustainable resource to create more affordable multifamily and rental housing. Last session, I was a principal co-author of Senator Mark DeSaulniers' SB 391, which would have provided an ongoing permanent source. The approach in SB 391 was a reasonable fee on documents recorded in real estate transactions, excluding home sales. That would have brought stability to our affordable housing production pipeline and create a pay-as-you-go approach. There was a broad coalition of support for the bill, and here's a quote: "A lack of housing options within reach of the workforce is a major factor impeding California's businesses from attracting and retaining workers." And that quote is from a letter signed by the Bay Area Council, the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce, the LA Business Council, the Orange County Business Council, and the Silicon Valley Leadership Council, or group, in their support of SB 391. We had a very broad coalition of support, but that bill needed a 2/3 vote. And due to, frankly, what I think is inexplicable opposition of the realtors, the bill died. But increasing affordable housing helps provide safe, secure home for all Californians. And increasing affordable housing improves outcomes sought in other sectors, such as health care and law enforcement. On average, a single homeless Californian incurs $2,987 per month in county costs for things like emergency room visits, inpatient hospital stays, as well as arrest and incarceration. Roughly 79% of these costs are curtailed when the same Californian finds an affordable place to live. Increasing affordable housing puts more Californians back to work. There are estimates that 29,000 jobs would be created annually by about $500 million spent on affordable housing, most of them in well-paying construction jobs. So increasing affordable housing unlocks billions of dollars also in federal, local, and private funds. It leverages. The approach taken in SB 391 would have brought in an estimated $500 million annually. So you see, we're still short to the questioner that $1 billion. So we have work to do. It would have leveraged, or the $500 million annually can leverage about an additional $2.78 billion in the federal, local, and bank investment in homes and jobs for Californians. So later this month, I am going to unveil in Los Angeles an affordable housing package that I hope to get support for. Like the transportation package, some of it will need a 2/3 vote in both houses. So those of us advocating for better transportation infrastructure, more affordable housing, we really have our work cut out for us. It's not going to be simple. But this is a time for, I think, critical investments. You know, the recession is in our past. The present is fiscally stable and looking stronger every day. But let me be very clear. We have to continue to strengthen that foundation, even as we look ahead to fix the problems that we need to fix going into the future. Transportation infrastructure, college affordability, and affordable housing, in my mind, are all part of that. And I know each of your organizations will devote serious attention to these issues and to solutions we're offering in the Assembly.